Can't think of many places I'd leave it all to go. Can't think of many things I'd die to hold. The list of what is priceless is very short indeed, and there aren't very many things I find I really need.
So here's my simple creed: the things that last forever, the things that never die. I'll give myself each day I live for what I know will never, never die.
Yes, I will give myself away for things that will never die. To know a love that's lasting, forgiveness without blame, a peace that through the pressure still remains, the simple joy of living, my family and my friends, relationships that go on after space and time shall end. I thank you, Lord, for them.
The things that last forever, the things that never die. I'll give myself each day I live for what I know will never, never die.
Yes, I will give myself away
for things that will never die. To rescue someone dying, to lift a fallen child, to hurt when someone's hurting, to walk the second mile, the things that last forever, the things that never die. I'll give myself each day I live for what I know will never, never die. Yes, I will give myself away
for what will never die.
The things that last forever.
Welcome to the Everlasting Love program. We're so glad that you decided to join us. I hope that you enjoyed the music selection at the beginning of the program. This is a place where you get to hear inspirational stories about people's journeys. You get to hear about organizations in our community that provide resources to various individuals who are in need, and when you look at the shows today, you're going to hear a lot about artistic expression and how God uses his people in that great way to just artistically express who he is. During the course of the program, you're going to see our number up on the screen, 773-286-2171, and also our website, www.everlastinglovetv.com. You can also see many of our shows now on the YouTube channel, and all of those will be coming up, so make sure to write those down. If there's something about the program that really inspires you, or you're looking for additional information, you'd like to get in contact with us, please feel free to give us a call at the number that I shared with you, or contact us on our website, send us an email, and we'll definitely get back to you. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our guests today. And so with me are Reba Hervas and Michael Larson. Welcome to the program. And Reba, you are the president of Overshadowed Productions, and you're going to be telling us all about that. And Michael, you're one of the actors. Can I have your autograph, please? Was that a no, or?
Won't be worth much.
Well, you never know. You never know. I'm going to stick it in my book, kind of press it down, and you never know. So glad that you're both with us today, and we're actually going to talk about theater and how you guys use that in a way to bring inspiration to the community and tell stories, biblical stories. But before we go there, I'd like to hear a little bit about your own stories. So Reba, maybe we could start with you first. Okay. Tell us how you got here.
Well, I'm an only child, and my father was in the Army, and we traveled a lot of places. We moved about every 2 years my whole life. And because of that, I became kind of shy. My family was very outgoing and robust, and I kind of hid away from everybody. And what happened as a result of that is I became very interested in literature and movies and things like that, and would really immerse myself in my imagination. And it wasn't until really I got to high school that I had a speech teacher actually take a little bit of interest in my shyness, and said, you know what, I want to encourage you to come try out for a summer production that I'm doing, and I'm going to make it so that you have the ability to communicate with other people without hiding away and turning into this ball of nothingness. And really, because of his coaching, it changed my life, because it gave me the ability to be able to at least communicate. This man was not a believer. He was just a man who believed in the power of communication. Because of that, I decided to go to college and get a degree in speech education.
Wow.
So it really changed my whole life.
That's great, yeah.
From that, I became a teacher in speech and English, and had a wonderful 10, 15 years of having an opportunity to really minister to other young people who really had the same kind of problems.
Does he know that you became a teacher?
I never, my family moved away from North Carolina right after that, and I never saw him again. I've often thought about him, because here's another example of how God uses people without you even realizing that you had that kind of power in somebody else's life. Great teachers make
great students too.
Absolutely.
Wow.
So I got married, found my husband in high school, got married, in college I got married. We have 3 children, and as my kids were growing up, I wasn't working anymore. I had the opportunity of not having to do that like a lot of people have to, and because of that I got to volunteer. So I volunteered in my church and in the school that my kids went to, with speech competitions, drama, with the ministry that our church has. And about the time that my second daughter hit her senior year, I really just kind of felt like the Lord was saying that this dream that I'd had a long time ago of having a Christian theater, that it was now or never, because I wasn't getting any younger. And I started putting everything in motion to start Overshadowed, because it was a dream really that started in my heart that minute that speech teacher had that impact on me all those years before, but just never had the opportunity to do it, because it takes a lot of manpower and people power and resources that you don't necessarily have right away. So my children grew up and left me, and all 3 of them are really in communication in some field or another, which is really kind of cool.
Yeah, so you had an influence on them.
Right, which is also really heartwarming. And this is now our 9th year in the field of Overshadowed Theatrical Productions, so it's really quite exciting.
Okay, so this was started 9 years ago, and it was just this inspiration.
Just a little dream.
Yeah, so now it's a little dream that's been going on for 9 years. And we're going to talk more about, you know, the impact that it's having and the kinds of things that you do. And
Great.
so Michael, what about you? Tell us what brings you here. Tell us about your story, your background.
Well, I'm from San Diego, California. So I was raised, I guess I would say, in an average home for a Southern California person. Didn't know the Lord, so lived for self, and got involved in all the things that you do when you don't know Christ as your Savior. So I would say I was a significant sinner, you know, and a leader of people in the wrong direction. And I came to Christ at 17 when someone invited me to a musical activity in their church, and heard the gospel preached, and just completely ripped me apart.
Wow.
So
I like that, ripped me apart. I like that verb.
Jesus ripped me. He did. He truly did. And changed my life completely. And so, you know, then he started taking away, you know, one thing after another that was wickedness and worldliness, and you know, gave me a love and a joy that I didn't have, and an appreciation for what God's grace does in the heart of a person. So over the course of time, we ended up in Chicago through various moves and whatnot for work and things. I'm married, also 2 children. And so what got us involved in Overshadowed is a ministry that is open to people. So if you open auditions, and my daughter was involved in a production, and I had no acting background, but so they needed somebody to do an understudy role. She needed someone to do an understudy role, and my daughter said, "Oh, my dad will do it." And I,
out of the mouth of babes, right?
Yes. So I thought she was a little insane at that time. So, but I did it, and so you know, overcame my fears and things of that nature. But what I see in Overshadowed is the ability, when we do the biblical plays. We did the story of Ruth, and it was so powerful, and I saw how drama, living out biblical stories, could completely change people's lives. I mean, you can bring the Bible to life in a person who wouldn't read it, potentially, and in such a way that they can understand it. And I saw that production impact a lot of people's lives, especially the cast and crew, and the audience was just moved in a big way, and they understood more, and it caused them to go back and read their Bible and read about Ruth and things like that. So I saw the ministry power of an organization like Overshadowed.
So what is your background? So you don't do this full time?
No, I'm a manager in a corporate America. You know, work for a very large corporation, a middle manager, and I've been with this company for 25 years. So that's what I. Yeah.
And so how do you can't marry the two at all, right? You do this kind of like when you're doing middle management stuff, you're doing that, and then when you're in the theater, you're doing that. Do you ever share with folks like what you're doing? Has anyone ever seen your plays?
Some of our employees and some of my employees have come to see shows. Yes. I have employees all around the country, but occasionally they might be in town and when there's a production. So, I mean, Christ is involved in everything you do, so you know that can impact the work. But no, it's this is pure. Overshadowed is an all-volunteer army of people who believe it's a ministry that's worthwhile and can impact people's lives.
Well, so let's talk about the ministry then. Let's talk about like what it looked like at its inception, and then just kind of how it's evolved over the years, and the kinds of plays that you've done, and so let's do that.
I dream big, and when I first started, a long time ago, when I first got married, my husband and I would take trips across the United States for conventions or whatever, and the whole way I'd be talking about the fact that I wanted to have this Christian dinner theater, because there are dinner theaters around, but none that have Christian stories that they do, and there was also this period of time in my life that I think that if I'd have been somebody else without Christ, I might have tried to go to Hollywood or Broadway or something like that, but I knew that for me, that wasn't a place that I needed to go. I first of all don't think that I would have been able to withstand some of the temptations that come the way. So I think God just kind of directed me a different way, or maybe to save me for Overshadowed. I don't know what the reason is, but I just never felt that that was the place for me to go. So I always had this idea that Christian theater was a little bit more protective than what is sometimes out there that other people have to fight all the time. So we kind of came up with this slogan that we wanted to be a theater with a difference, so that you weren't having to come into a production that you were involved with Overshadowed and having to talk to your director about, now I really don't want to wear something that's that low or that revealing, or I won't say that swear word, or I don't like the moral of the story, or whatever decisions that you sometimes have to make, and that conflict that you might have to deal with.
You're avoiding all of that.
Right, exactly. And hopefully too that we're having a chance to minister just within the people, so that we treat each other differently too, because you know, the world is a vicious place, and there's a lot of cattiness and competition, not only in theater, but I'm sure in the corporate world as well. That's just life in general. And so we've tried to make it a safe place as well, and the way that we treat people. And I think most of the people who have volunteered for Overshadowed would tell you that we're a family. So the minute somebody comes in, we want to tell them about Christ and what he's done for us. We want to tell them the difference that makes in our lives. We want to share their burdens, whether they're financial or trouble that they're having with jobs or whatever it is. We want them to know that we are supporting them in prayer and whatever we can do for them. So that was always kind of a goal of mine. Getting it started was different. I think that I said that I volunteered at my church for a lot of years, and so what I did to start with is I went around to all my people who were key players, who did my costumes, who helped me technically, all those different things that are the back scene people that are very unappreciated sometimes, and said, this is kind of what I'm thinking. If we do this, will you come on board? And I think, to my memory, I think that every one of them came with me.
So it's kind of like they were being prepped already.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we'd all worked together, so we already kind of knew how each other thought and felt and how that worked. So then the big drawback came is now we had this, but we had no place to put any productions on. And I didn't really know that was going to be as difficult as it was. We had a lot of people that came to our productions at the church that I attend, but I guess I didn't realize that Overshadowed had no name recognition. The church did, but when I left that, it was like starting completely over. So in my head, when I'm making a budget and I'm thinking these things through, I'm thinking I'm going to easily sell 2,000 tickets at every performance. I mean, right? And that did not happen. Our first production was something that we did called Silent Star, which was a play that I adapted from a book. And I think we had 299 people, and I was really disappointed because I thought 1,000 would be no problem.
So you did that in the church, or you did that out? This was outside of the church.
So what happened was my church was not interested in us starting this company within our church, and you know what? I really think that was a good thing for us too, because we didn't really want to be a ministry of my church. We wanted to be a ministry ourselves, because I didn't want some of the regulations that might come with it. One of the things I desperately wanted is anybody to be able to be involved with Overshadowed, because I wanted to be a ministry to you, no matter whether your beliefs are exactly what mine are or not. And I think it's been really great for us. Like, for instance, we would have never gotten the Larsons. That would not have happened because they went to a different church. So we've grown this family of believers, and we've learned a lot from each other through it. And that has been probably one of the greatest personal blessings that we've had. So we didn't start it through the church. So what happened was I heard that public high schools have to kind of let you use their building, and I called and they said yes, and it was really a horrendous experience, because the public high school in my town, well, it was a junior high school, they have their stage is in their gymnasium. And so I did not know when they were allowing me to have rehearsals, tech rehearsals, that meant that basketball practice was going on
you
at the same
work
time.
that sports schedule, right?
Exactly. So we're standing there with the lights up waiting to go on, and basketballs are hitting people in the head. And so it really was only good for us for about one show. And then this is something that was really one of those neat God moments. That was at Christmas time. We decided to open at Christmas, and right after that I went out to eat with the village manager in town, and he had been to see the show, and he's like, man, you got to get out of that gym. And I said, I know, it was horrible. And he said, hey, there's this little Baptist church in town that I think you should call, because maybe they're going to want to sell their building, because I know they're struggling financially. There's a lot of historical work that needed to be done to the building. And I said, I've knocked on their door, nobody's ever there. And he said, I got the name of the pastor.
Wow.
So he gave me the name. I called the pastor, and we set up this meeting that we were going to meet. As I'm walking out of the house that day, my husband goes, well, what are you going to ask him? And I said, I have no idea. I'm just going to let the Lord lead the conversation. So I sit down with this man, and almost, I guess in my heart, I kind of thought we were going to ask him about buying the building, but didn't really have any plans because we got no money, you know?
Right.
And so I'm sitting there, and very early in the conversation, I thought, Lord, this man loves his congregation. This is a close family. There's no way I can ask. How can you ask to buy somebody's church? You just can't do that. So I was praying as he was talking, and I said, all right, Lord, just whatever you want to come from this conversation, let it happen. And I'll just end with saying, if you want to be involved in some way, let me help you with this ministry. And at the end of the conversation, he looked at me and said, you know what, Reba? He said, I really feel like the Lord is impressing us to be a part of your ministry. So I'm going to give you the key to our building. He said, I'm going to check with the trustees and everything, but I'm going to say, for as long as you need our building, that we can be a home for your ministry.
Wow.
8 years later, we moved out. I mean, we were there
for 8 years.
For 8 years, yeah. And they were gracious and kind.
So you have a separate facility now? Or?
We have moved to a different church that's bigger.
Okay, but you were there for
we were there for 8 years. I mean, and one of the stories that people say all the time is that this man preached, you know, and
he preached all over the world and never left his town.
Because he would preach in front of our sets. We'd put these amazing sets up, and he would preach in front of them, not make us take them down on the weekend, which was a lifesaver, because I don't know what we would have done without that. And even though it was a small building, we could only hold about 130 people at a time in one of our performances. It was charming because it was a historical building. It's beautiful steeple, well over 100 years old, and wasn't handicapped accessible, so I feel like that hindered us a little bit, and that's one of the reasons we had to get out of there. But other than that, we learned a lot, and I honestly don't know how we would have gotten to this point without that.
Sure.
And it was, again, another one of those God things.
I've heard folks say that the number 8 is the number of new beginnings, right?
Yeah.
Like 7 is completion, and then 8 is new beginnings.
Cool.
I'm just saying, I heard that, right? I'm not like a numerologist or anything, but
well, it was for us.
I heard that. So, well, that's kind of exciting. So how are these plays written? Or, because I know you just said that you adapted one of them, but so over the 8 years, and Michael, you can certainly jump in on this too and talk about like what are some of the plays you've done? How did you decide, you know, to do those plays? What was sort of the inspiration? And yeah, talk about that.
Do you want to talk? No.
You probably have to talk about the ones you wrote. So.
Well, we kind of have a little bit of a formula, which helps me a little bit. I would say that selecting the plays for the year is probably one of the most difficult things that I do. But we have a 50-50 philosophy at Overshadowed, and what I mean by that is we do 50% of our things are family friendly and 50% are the biblical driven or missionary story. And the reason I do that is because I believe that we live in a very entertainment driven society, a very visual society, and I feel like that the American population today, they want to watch things. They want that kind of stuff.
It's like a positive option.
Right,
what
exactly.
Yes.
And so I feel like there's a lot of things that we can learn from good moral stories as well.
Yep, absolutely.
And there's a lot of classics out there that maybe have been smutted up a little bit, or things that maybe you would question or that you wouldn't know were safe for your family or whatever. Kind of like those decisions that we were talking about before that an actor might need to make. So I feel like that's just as much of an importance in our well-rounded education as the biblical things, even though obviously the higher purpose is the biblical drama.
Well, and having been an English teacher and having a literature
Exactly.
background, I'm sure that you
It
have
all plays together.
tons and tons of resources that you can draw from.
So,
Yeah. And one thing I like about the 50-50 is that somebody may not come and see the story of Pilate
Right.
or Ruth, but
Right.
they will come to Music Man or Hello
Yes.
Dolly or My
Yes.
Fair Lady, which we've done, all of those.
Those are fun.
And
Yeah.
so they come to see that, and they see a very high quality, and it's also family friendly. And they say, this is fantastic. For $12, I can come and see a Broadway quality show, even a musical with outstanding talent.